Hi everybody, my name is Elizabeth Burgess and I'm going to be picking up where Gregory left off. To begin, there are two things that Greg touched on that I would like to add a little bit more to. The first issue being the testing, and the second issue being the differences in school knowledge among the different socioeconomic backgrounds. As Greg had said, the articles are from quite a long time ago, so that shows us something about the progress that we've made towards these issues. Obviously, we have seen some steps in the right direction, but the issue is still a huge issue in education today that educators and policymakers are often talking about. To begin with the first issue of testing, you can see all of the consequences of high-stakes testing in the article that we read. Causes anxiety, rote memorization, less creative thinking. In the long run, I think that is really going to be detrimental towards our students and our future discoveries and abilities and what we're capable of doing. Issues like high stakes testing really make me wonder, why are we doing this to our students and to our teachers? Why are we making them so filled with anxiety, thinking that maybe my school will close if we don't get the test scores we need? Maybe I'll get fired if my students don't perform great on this test. So we think about all these consequences, and I wondered to myself, why do we do this? And after thinking about it for a little while and through all of my education classes that I have taken, I've come to the conclusion, in my opinion, I personally think that testing is a really easy way out of trying to determine where a student stands in their knowledge from that school year. I believe that test makers who make the tests, it's relatively easy just to ask a few questions and put it in a machine where the bubbles are filled out, and the next thing you know, it shoots out how well they did, and that determines the kid's future. I personally believe that a way to fix this high-stakes testing problem is, instead of testing, I really believe that having the students work on a year-long project in which at the end of the year they'll take all of the knowledge from the previous school year and it'll be presented in their end of the year project. And that is something that I would really like to implement in my classroom someday, if that is possible, even if testing is still around, because I think that the creativity that would come out of that, along with the students having an option in what they decide to do their project on, it will, not only be something that they are very interested in, but they can, with that interest in it, they can really add to it, and eventually someday, hopefully they'll make new discoveries in the world. With this kind of testing, all the child is really learning is rote memorization and test taking. That is not really helping their artistic abilities or their creative abilities or their ability to think outside of the box. All they are learning is what the teacher tells them to, what the textbooks tell them to, and what the country's test makers are telling them to. The second issue now that was first brought up by Greg was the difference in school knowledge among the different socioeconomic backgrounds. We can see time and again that kids of higher socioeconomic backgrounds compared to students that come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, the ones with the higher SES always perform better on tests. This is for pretty obvious reasons that I'm sure we have all learned about and talked about in many of our education classes. A huge component that can add to how a student achieves on a high stakes test or not is the resources that the child is able to have. It mentions in a few of the readings so far that some of these schools are able to have people come in to teach the material to the teachers and help them learn the ways of teaching it correctly. Students from higher SES backgrounds are also capable of hiring private tutors, along with all of the books needed for practicing. These children are able to have access to practice tests, and also their parents are more likely to have gone to college or to have a career that is a professional career, and therefore it is more likely that they have already gone to college and have also had to deal with high stakes testing. Because of this knowledge that their parents have, that is a huge resource for the child already. Their parents are going to be able to help them every step of the way. Whereas children that come from a lower SES background, their parents may not have gone to college, or they may not have even finished high school. Therefore, they have not taken those tests and they do not know the steps involved to doing well on high stakes testing, as well as applying to college or getting into college. So it really depends on what type of family the student is born into that can really determine the outcome of their educational attainment and where they end up going in their education. So I think that this issue of what resources a child is capable of having and receiving, I think that largely determines how well students will do on high stakes tests, as well as the knowledge that they have from schooling. Because of how different districts are, higher SES districts are more likely to have as Anion said, a dominant theme of excellence. Whereas the working class schools will have a dominant theme of resistance. So they are not really involved in their schoolwork and they're kind of distracting. So to begin to wrap up, it is very common that everyone, especially in education, we are going to come into contact with people who have different opinions than us. And I think these opinions are extremely important, and even if you may not agree with someone about their opinion, it is still important to listen to it to try to get a better sense of different ideas that are out there. While Gregory and I were discussing these different topics, we kind of found that our opinions seemed to diverge when it came to the choices that the students have in that determining their knowledge and test scores. While I believe that students really do not have a choice in what type of family they are born into, this leads to them not having a choice in what kind of school district they go to. And that choice, or them not having a choice in where they do go to school, that can really determine how they not only just do on testing, but just overall. If a student is going to a school that has a high dropout rate, that will not be beneficial for the student themselves. And not just issues with the school itself, but with the student's family. If the student cannot afford to stay in high school even, if they have to go and work to help support their family, that is a choice that the student sure makes themselves, but is it really a choice? They were born into that situation, and therefore I really do not believe it is a choice. And closing the gap between the high SES and the low SES students is a huge issue, and we've obviously been trying to come up with some solutions for it for quite some time. We have came up with a few ideas, such as Head Start for low-income families. They can put their child into Head Start for free, and it's a preschool program to help them become caught up with where their higher SES peers would be, because they would be able to afford a preschool. So it is really programs like that that can really help close the gap between these two groups. And programs like these, in many of the studies that I've read, they do help initially, but it seems as though as time goes on, they do not continue to help. So to wrap up, I am extremely hopeful that me and my fellow peers who are going into teaching, I really hope that we keep this discussion going and can try to figure out more solutions for this, what seems a never-ending issue. With two issues being high-stakes testing and differences in school knowledge among high and low socioeconomic backgrounds. I hope you enjoyed our video, and I look forward to reading the comments on YouTube. And I would really like to hear your ideas to trying to resolve these two issues. Okay, thanks.